Ella Conolly, welcome to the podcast. How's it going?
Hello, thank you for having me. Yeah.
We've finally managed to make it happen.
Oh, yeah, both back in Inverness at the same time.
Yeah, which should be easy, but once you've got like two different schedules together, it's pretty difficult. So I'm stoked we managed to make it happen. What have you been up to over the last sort of weeks and months, off season?
Been a busy start to the year, actually, yeah. Spent quite a lot of time in Spain training, which has been real nice. I've been to Mexico to race already this year, which was really cool. Had a team camp in the US of Cannondale, so yeah. Season starts already.
Yeah, pretty busy. Are you finding everything's just going off now? Like now, I don't want to tempt fate by saying like post-COVID, but sort of post-COVID restrictions.
Yeah, it feels normal now. Yeah, I don't want to jinx anything either, but yeah, it feels almost back to normal, which is really cool. It's nice to be like back at events and able to go and see people and train and race properly. Yeah, I'm excited.
You briefly mentioned it there. We're both from the Highlands. I don't think we've actually ever properly met, have we? Like, which is pretty crazy, given we're both from the same area, and I guess we just move in like slightly different disciplines. But where is it you actually live up here?
So I live like 30 minutes east of Inverness, basically, in the middle of nowhere.
Is that where you born and brought up?
Yeah, always lived here. I had 1 year living in Manchester while I was racing cross country, and other than that, I've lived here my whole life.
Yeah, cool. Because you don't really have like an Invernessian. I guess I don't know if I have a proper Invernessian accent anyway.
No, but you definitely sound more Scottish than I do. Like everyone's always really confused as soon as I speak. They're like, "I thought you said you were Scottish." Like what? Yeah, I don't know. Neither of my parents are from up here, but yeah, I've lived here my whole life and for some reason never picked up much of an accent.
So I guess it's a little bit of a cliche, but it's always good to kind of hear how sort of biking started for you. And I'm like, as a professional rider as well, I'm always interested to hear different people's paths to pro riding. Was being a pro was it something that you always have been working towards, or is it something that's evolved fairly naturally?
I think I didn't actually realise that you could make a proper career out of bikes until it happened. I was like, oh, we're here. That's sweet. But yeah, I'd always ridden bikes like for fun when I was really young as a family. I have a younger brother who was really, really into bikes, still is. So like he was the reason we rode most weekends, family holidays. So that's where it all really started. And then, yeah, it was always something I did like just for enjoyment, for fun all the way through school. I did a year of racing cross country professionally, but even then I feel like I didn't see it in my head as like a really long-term career. And then I started racing Enduro and it like gradually built up, and now it feels like something that's like sustainable, which is really cool. Was there a specific time in the last few years where you went from just saying that you ride bikes to I'm a professional mountain bike racer? Or I think it still sounds weird, doesn't it?
You're not there yet.
Yeah, no, I still say to people, oh yeah, I ride bikes, and they're like, oh nice, cool, like, and just assume it's fun, and then I have to correct myself and go, I'm a professional bike rider. So yeah, still sounds weird, but yeah, probably like a year and a half, 2 years ago was the first time that I was like, no, like this is a proper career. How
would you describe Enduro, which is now like your main focus,
for sure,
to people who have never seen or heard about it?
I guess you can compare it in a way to like rally driving in the way that there's timed individual stages. I think that's the closest thing to it. Only the downhills are timed, so you might have 5 downhill timed stages in a day, and you have to pedal up to get to the top. So unlike downhill, you have to pedal to the top, and then it's your collective like time over those stages is your overall time.
You can't really ever fully grasp what Enduro's all about until you go and see one. Like I actually had only been to my first EWS back in October in Peebles, and it was definitely interesting to kind of get a vibe or get a sort of snapshot of how different it is to downhill, and also different to XC, which is something I'm sure we'll get into because you've got a unique perspective of XC and Enduro. Can you tell us a little bit about your XC career and how that all came about?
I think, so I started off they were called like dirt crits, so like for kids, like just small laps, like a bunch race, mountain biking. And that's what there was locally when I was a kid, and that kind of progressed to doing Scottish cross-country races and British cross-country races. And at one of the British cross-country races, I think I was a junior, one of the British cycling coaches came up to me and was like, oh, like, you look good, like, do you want to apply for the British Cycling Programme, so I applied and had a spot on that for 2 years racing the Junior World Series while I was still at school. And then at the end of that, the next step is to go into like Senior Academy, which is a residential programme in Manchester, and they like give you all of the resources you need, coaches, pay you, a house, everything, so that you can be a professional athlete. So yeah, I did 1 year on that, racing some under-23 World Cups. Which was a really interesting experience, but yeah, it wasn't for me.
So that's obviously British cycling, which is full on Olympic, sort of government backed.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Which is obviously very different to downhill and enduro. What was the sort of entry process to get into that programme?
So originally you fill out like an application form and you have to write a bit about like what you've done and like why you want to be on the programme and stuff. And then they have selection weekends. So you'll do a whole weekend of riding with everybody else who's like potentially going to be on the programme, but you know there's only like so many spots. It's like quite a competitive weekend in the end.
Like a funny vibe.
Yeah, a bit weird. And you'll do like timed hill climbs. We did some like watt bike tests, bits of skill stuff, like a bit of everything. And I think they basically score you on everything and pick the top so many from each. So I did 2 or 3 of those. I definitely did them to get into the junior programme, and then I think by the end of that they kind of know you. So they offered me the place on the senior programme. I don't think I'd do that again, but yeah.
Cool. So in terms of the senior programme, was that for a year or for 2 years?
I was just there for a year. Okay. Yeah.
I presume you're like with the track cyclists, the road riders and all that. I imagine it's a bit of a juggernaut. Like what's a typical week look like?
It was
on
cool.
That setup?
Like, I know it's exciting. Like, I guess I was like moving up home at that point. I went and did that instead of going to university. So it was like, yeah, real exciting. You're kind of living with a load of other riders like in a similar situation to you. And the weeks were packed. Like you'd have full-time training program, gym stuff, like working with a nutritionist. They were actually started trying to teach us some language as well to try and give us something else. Like seeing physios and yeah, a load of bike riding, everything you need to work on.
There's like quite a few other riders on that same...
So at the time I was there, it was myself and Evie Richards were the 2 females for mountain bike. And then there were a few guys as well on the programme for mountain bike. And then, yeah, but I was living with a couple of track riders at one point. Like I had some roadies who were really good friends. So like everybody's very mixed. And yeah, it's nice to meet like people from other disciplines.
Cool. It must be a fair shock to the system to suddenly like nutritionists, gym, coaches and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it was a bit weird. Like I guess we were living in Manchester as well. So I was road riding most of the time, which I didn't really enjoy. Having gone from having trails on my doorstep to having to drive like an hour and a half to ride my mountain bike every single time. Like, yeah, it was strange, but I don't know, Manchester's a cool city, so like it was nice for a while.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of counterintuitive to go from living in a place like this when you're trying to make it as a professional mountain biker to sticking you in the centre of Manchester, but I guess that's where all their coaching facilities are.
Yeah, to be close to everything else, you have to be there. Yeah, it worked though. Moving
into like actually competing, you're in the World Cups, which must be a fair experience in itself. Crowd's insane. What's it like rocking up to like your first XC World Cup? It must be pretty intimidating.
Turning up to your first like World Cup, I had no points. See, my gridding was like a long way back. So the first point is the start line is insane. Everybody just goes and you have so many riders in front of you. It's like, and everybody's going like flat out. So it's like impossible to move up and move your way through. So like, I felt like I was fighting a losing battle for the first few races because like I couldn't get past anyone. And then by the time you're into single track and there's like 40 riders in front of you, like, yeah, it's hard to move through.
I can only imagine like you could spend as many hours on your mountain bike as you want to get ridiculously good technically. I'm sure you could be fit, but there must just be nothing that prepares you for that sort of mass start, carnage, crowds, everything.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. Like it's cool having people right at the edge of a track, and because like you're going up the hill, unlike like downhill and enduro, I noticed them a lot more when I was racing cross country because I don't know, you're going a bit slower up the hill than you go down. So like, yeah, spectators there cheering is really cool. Like, it makes a good atmosphere.
Cool. So that's obviously you racing cross country World Cups. At what point in your journey within cross country World Cups did you start thinking like maybe this isn't for me and wanting to look elsewhere in terms of where to get your racing?
So I think I knew after the first couple of World Cups that like I wasn't very like happy doing that. I guess like yeah, maybe it was the whole cross country thing. I didn't really enjoy the racing, and yeah, I wasn't so stoked with it. But I also wasn't winning medals, which is what British cycling look for. Like you're there to win medals, and I kind of thought that was my first year. They give you a year to settle in, but actually I just had my best result at one of the World Cups in Andorra. I think I was either 15th or 18th, but I was like pretty stoked with it. Like finally felt like I was getting somewhere. And late that week, just before the next World Cup in Lenzerheide, they came and knocked on my room and they were like, "You're off the program."
Oh, really? So that kind of cut
yeah,
through.
it's like but they could see I wasn't happy. So like I think at the time I was like, I don't really want to be doing this anyway. But what else do I do? So I had a moment of panic. I'd like given up my place at university and stuff to go and do that. I was like, oh no. And then Tracy Moseley had been there to kind of give us some help through the course at Lenzerheide. She knocked on my room like an hour later and was like, Ellett, right, you're going to race Enduro. I'm going to enter you to Ardrock, a Tweed Love race and a World Enduro at the end of this year. Like, let's go do race Enduro. And I had an old bike that I'd kind of bought full suspension a couple of years before, and Tracy gave me some of her old kit and was like, off you go. So I drove to a few Enduro races on my own at the end of that year. But
Cool.
Yeah.
So is Tracy actually part of, well, I guess for those of you that listen, Tracy Moseley's obviously like absolute legend in downhill, enduro. She's done it all. Does she actually have an official role within British cycling then, as a coach or as an advisor?
No, so I think she works for Trek now, but like at the time, so that must be 5 years ago. That's really scary.
Getting old.
Yeah.
Someone or other.
But at the time, I don't think she had that role. She was helping with some like one-off coaching days of British cycling, like for the cross-country riders, cool. Which was really cool.
That's pretty cool to have someone like that. It's like such a legend sport to kind of see that you needed maybe a little bit of guidance or nudged in the right direction, and
for sure
to take that kind of upon herself to help you.
She's helped so many riders, like quite a few of the women racing now. She's kind of brought them into enduro and like is always there for advice, which is amazing. Like really, really lovely.
Cool. That's nice to see. I'm sure she's still absolutely shredding a bike as well.
Yeah. I actually haven't ridden with her in a while, which is a shame. But yeah, no, for sure. I don't think you lose that once you ride like that.
What's your first enduro races like? Is it just an immediate kind of like love at first sight, or is it a bit of a slow burn like it was with cross country as well?
So the first, I think Ardrock, I just rode like an XC race. I didn't really understand what to do. So I was like rode down like the 5-hour loop, like overtaking everyone up the climb. I was on my own, like I just rocked up and I was overtaking everyone on the climbs, and everyone was like, "What are you doing?" Like,
you're literally racing
this
the
is
climbs.
here for fun. Well, I wasn't racing, but I was just riding like good pace, like around the whole thing.
Yeah.
But I won that, and I was like, okay, like this is good fun. Like I'll go do the next one in Scotland. Like raced one of the Tweed Love Enduros, and like thought, oh, that's great. And then, yeah, Tracy got me an entry into the last World Enduro of the year in finale. So set me up to ride with my friend Martha.
Yeah, another total ripper, like good crack as well. Like knows how to have fun on a bike.
For sure, always just has a good time. So, like, I went out to my first EWS in Italy and was like, this is so good. Like everyone was sat around eating like ice cream and pizza before the race and like hiring mopeds and like swimming in the sea, and I was like, okay, this is fun. And then I raced and I was like, okay, that's really fun as well. Like, where's the catch? And I was like, there isn't one. This is really good. So I think I won that first race as well, and I was like, sweet, I'm in, and just went home and like kind of worked out what I'd need to race the full series next year.
As long as you say that about like eating pizza and stuff like that, aside from the obvious racing differences between just the terrain and discipline of cross country versus enduro, what is the other kind of lifestyle and vibe differences between an XC World Cup and an EWS?
EWS, everyone just seems so relaxed. It's like everyone's like friends. And I think some of it's because you race individually down the stages. You're not actually ever bar to bar with people. But everybody wants each other to like succeed and get around the course. Like one person gets a mechanical, all the other riders are helping, like to get them to the next stage. And like you want your friends to do well, and you're all just riding the transitions, having a nice chat. So yeah, for me it feels far more relaxed. Like yeah, a really like friendly vibe.
That's interesting that you say that, and when I hear you saying it back, it's so obvious the actual the sort of fundamental difference within the competition is like it's not like bar to bar racing. And then I'm suddenly thinking of like so many different examples of that. Like for example, even downhill, which is super competitive. It's still like everyone seems to be friends, but then you compare it to something like Supercross or Supercross and motocross or Formula One. Everyone seems to basically hate each other because
For sure. You're racing each other, like not the clock. So we're racing the clock, not the other competitors, really. Yeah.
You just can't avoid having at least like one or two contentious altercations with one of your teammates throughout the season or career, so it's just inevitable. But
for sure. Yeah, no. It's a good atmosphere though at the EWS. It's really nice.
So you've decided Enduro's for you, and you said you came back here to try and figure out how to make a full series happen. How does someone like yourself at that age begin to make a full series traveling around the world a reality?
For sure. I guess I didn't really know where to start. I didn't know anything about sponsorship. I hadn't really had a sponsor before. Like I didn't know how to approach people. Someone was like told me to put a bit of a CV together. So I guess I did that and kind of spoke to a few people I knew within the UK. But it was fairly late in the year by the time I started trying. I didn't really know what I was asking for or what was reasonable. I knew I needed a bike, basically, and like a bit more support. But the first thing I did was went and got a job. I was like, I'm going to need money, a lot of money to go race EWS. So I found myself a job in a local cafe, which, and then it wasn't until fairly late in the winter that someone put me in touch with Cannondale, actually. And Clive from Cannondale in the UK was like, oh yeah, here's a bike and we can find like a little bit of budget to help you through the race season. So I think they ended up covering half of my race season, like budget, and then the other half came from me working in the cafe all winter.
Was it a case of like getting a spreadsheet out and actually figuring out exactly how much money you need to do, or is it very much a case of like, I'll just take what I can get and then I'll try and make up the rest?
It was take what I can get. I'll start racing and see when I run out of money. And actually I realised halfway through the year that I wasn't going to have enough money to go to Whistler, and Cannondale heard and were like, what do you need? So like they stepped up then and helped me then, which was really cool. I think by the time I'd done a few more races, it like was more reasonable to start supporting me a bit more, which is cool.
And I guess like I guess it's fairly true for pretty much everything in life that when you try and budget something, it almost always costs more than you could ever imagine. Probably like at least just put it like double it probably. Yeah.
No, every single season I'm like, oh, I bet it costs about this. Never does. Never does.
How much, in hindsight now that you did it, how much do you think, like if you're forgetting about your salary, so you've got your bikes covered in terms of putting together a full season of EWS, because they're all over the place now. What sort of money are you thinking? If
you go with absolute minimum budget, and I guess usually in a year there's a race either in New Zealand and Tasmania or Chile and Colombia, and I think they end up costing like a similar. New Zealand's probably slightly more expensive, but a similar amount. And then in the middle of the year we usually do Whistler. This year we're actually doing 2 American rounds as well, so like it'll probably cost a bit more this year. I think you could just do it on about £10,000. I think like that's probably scraping. Like I travelled on a proper budget the first year, like didn't stay anywhere for any extra time because I didn't have more money for accommodation. It was like literally cheapest flight in, stayed just for the race, and cheapest flight out, which is a shame as well. Like
not getting to enjoy yourself while you're there.
I think you could do it on that.
Which I guess it is on a lot of money, but I suppose there is a lot of travelling involved there, and it's a pretty amazing experience.
Oh, and then you have entry on top of that, which
like what would you be looking at like for entry for an EWS?
I think it's a couple of £1,000 for like the full series now. No, it's quite
fairly adds up.
It's like when you're like a privateer, it's a lot of money for sure.
I was kind of like stupidly, just because I don't really compete and stuff, I didn't even really think of entries as a thing. I always just assume like I guess most of the professionals will get it paid for by their teams, but it's funny that's still an extra.
No, it's good to have that perspective. Like, I'm glad I did a few years like that. Like, now when someone steps up a bit of support, I'm like, oh my goodness, like, it makes such a difference. It's really cool. Yeah,
it's interesting you say that, because I think it would be obviously amazing. I'm sure you would never have turned it down if, like, after that first round that you raced, if someone, like, rocked up with a full factory deal, you'd have bit their hand off. But in a roundabout way, you've probably benefited from having that experience of seeing what that sort of struggle can be.
For sure, having to like work for a bit and like try and build some relationships and like start this conversation with brands, I think has been actually really useful. At the time, I was like, after the first season, I was like, oh my goodness, how can I make the next season work? Like it seemed like a huge task, but yeah, it does get easier and easier, which is nice.
So you're literally working for the whole off season to try and save money. So even though you've got backing from Cannondale for bikes and a little bit of budget, but you're still essentially working in a cafe, try to scrape the money together to go racing.
Yeah, and that cooked me. I basically rode my bike like once a week at most.
Oh, really?
Winter. It was like, by the time you stand, like it's not really difficult work at all, like, working in a cafe, but by the time you stand on your feet all day, it's like, then I found it pretty hard to like, train around that, especially in the winter when like it's dark most of all the time when like you're not working. Yeah. It's just carried the fitness from cross country and hopefully the best, really.
Legacy fitness. You managed to still make it work and you got through and you got more support, but it's such a vicious circle for people trying to break through sometimes where you don't get the sponsorship, so you then have to work, so then you don't get time to race, so you don't get the results, and then the next thing you know, you're maybe going to have to take pull back from racing and just going and getting a job, which obviously... So.
Yeah, I could easily not have found that little bit of support, and then I would have been able to like, half the amount of race I did. So I was lucky, I think, as well. Like, yeah.
One thing I was just thinking there is kind of going back a little bit. We were obviously on the topic of sponsorship, and you mentioned you're on the British Cycling Development Squad and stuff. You obviously get bikes. How does that setup work, like with working with like a professional team? Are you just like fully on the sort of British Cycling Squad and you get the bike that they give to them, or are you able to are they ever working with like say Trek or Cannondale for the respective riders that are on that team?
So at the time I was there, I wasn't on a team, but Evie Richards was. So like she was on the Trek factory racing, but also on British Cycling. She got all her bikes through Trek. I think one of the guys was also on a team. But British Cycling would just buy us bikes. The rest of us that weren't on teams. So there was no need to have a sponsor. Okay. And like I didn't know anything about it, wasn't really taught anything about it. So like I didn't really know that I could. I also didn't have any results. I wouldn't have necessarily got onto a team or found a sponsor. But at the time like they just bought everything.
Okay, so they're not working with like a specific brand that you guys are like.
They weren't then, but again that was like 5.5 years ago. So cool.
Yeah, I guess it's obviously a really dialed setup. Their vision's obviously to make, just to focus on performance and stuff like that.
For sure, but Olympic champions is what they want.
Yeah, which is cool. But then I suppose at the same time, it's like when you have those like kind of marginal cases, or maybe someone like yourself who wanted to move away from it a bit, you don't necessarily, you maybe find yourself a little bit unprepared, not just from the performance side of things, but also how to deal with sponsors, how much you're worth, because you've just been like given this like awesome package, but it's definitely
I knew nothing. Nothing. I think the thing that I took from it was I knew how to train, which I think was really valuable from like quite a young age. They'd kind of taught us how to train, which sounds crazy, but I know some people have gone straight into enduro and they haven't someone's just kind of handed them a training program, but they don't really know how to train. So like I guess that was valuable, but other than that yeah.
Did you find when you came into enduro, even though you decided cross country wasn't for you, did you still feel that you had like this like reserve of knowledge and training to basically just kind of immediately have a bit of an upper hand on some of your competitors?
I guess so. I don't know. Quite a lot of the women that I'm racing against in enduro also came from cross country, so like I think quite a few people have that. For a while, a couple of years ago, I kind of wrote my own training programs. Like I knew roughly what I needed to do in a week to be fit. So whether it was it wasn't very specific for enduro, but like I knew roughly like what to put in there within a week. So
how many rounds actually does EWS have?
This year we have 9 EWS rounds, I think. 8 EWS rounds plus Trophy of Nations, I think, this year.
Cool.
But this year was meant to be bigger. We were meant to do a couple of races at the start of the year in New Zealand and Tasmania. But because of COVID, they got pulled. So, yeah, it was meant to be a big series this year.
It's amazing just how much more racing that you guys do than in downhill. It's like 21 minutes of racing a year or something like that. as opposed to, well, I guess maybe 30 max.
Yeah.
If you include like world champs. But whilst a lot of people will say that like that makes it easy for them, I think in some ways it makes it harder.
Yeah, like it's a lot of pressure.
So much pressure on 30 minutes of racing.
That's the only time you've got to perform and like prove yourself in a year. That's nothing. But I don't know, enduro races are getting shorter and shorter. Some of our races, like total time, are now 25 minutes, which feels like really weird compared to when I started 4 years ago. It's like already changed a lot.
I suppose that's one thing. One thing that I definitely would appeal to me more in enduro is the fact that you can have a crash on a stage and still be in contention.
I don't. So honestly, I don't think you can anymore.
Yeah.
So that until maybe a year or two ago, yes. Now, the times are so tight and everybody is going so fast. Mm-hmm. For us now, it feels like we're doing downhill races every single stage. Like you could have like a smooth race before, like, and you'd have a good result. Now, if you cruise and have a smooth race, you're out the back, you're gone. Yeah. Like, so like you have to be pushing, and I think as soon as you have a mistake like this, you've lost too much time. It feels very different to how like the races a couple of years ago.
Do you generally feel like the standard and tightness of racing is just still on a really steep curve?
I know how the women's racing feels insane. Like, compared to 2 years ago, the level is ridiculous. Like the top, I don't know, 20 at least now are like really, really good fast riders. Like there's a great race now, which is cool to be part of.
Maybe get away with like a little mistake on a stage, but like a full off or a proper mechanical's enough to just ruin your weekend, basically.
For sure, yeah. Or you could be like a little off the pace, and like it makes like that'll be 10 places gone. So
I sound like such a broken record in this podcast because every race I speak to, every time, like the more I hear about it, I'm just like, oh my god, like I'm so lucky that I don't have to do that. Like
that you don't have to race.
Yeah, it just sounds like so. I'm sure like the highs must be amazing and like for us to be hard to top that, but. Just when you hear the stress of like just having to, just traveling all the way to like Australia and then like having a crash must just be the most like debilitating thing ever.
For sure. I don't know. I'm competitive, so it's like exciting rather than stressful.
Yeah. So we were talking about there. Where were we like in terms of your first year with Cannondale? Then was that 2018?
2018, yeah. So I was still on 21 and managed to race the full series.
But so you're essentially a privateer in 2018?
Yes, yeah.
And now in like sort of 2019 and beyond, are you still privateer or is it like a factory team setup that you're on now?
No, so actually this year coming is the first year that I'm going to have a mechanic at the races.
Oh, really?
So the past couple of years, SRAM have been really helpful. So if I've needed anything at the races, like if something's broken, they fixed it, which has been really nice. But I've never had like a mechanic or a pit setup at the EWS. So this is going to be...
So is this like full Cannondale like factory racing setup?
They've registered it's a bit of an in-between year.
Okay,
so like we're calling it Cannondale Enduro Team. And it's myself and Mitch Ropalato and Kara. So there's a few of it, which is exciting. And we're going to we're registered as a team. We're going to have a mechanic and a pit in the... So that's cool. And I think it will hopefully continue to build as well. But we're still all doing our individual sponsors. So like our sponsor in common is Cannondale, and they're who's registering us. But each of us still have our own like components and clothing and stuff.
It sounds like you got like a good bit of like core support and stability, with a little bit of freedom to get your own stuff on board and pick and choose clothing, components and stuff like that.
For sure, yeah. I mean, I've had quite a few like factory offers, but I've turned them down because I enjoy doing it like my own way and being able to choose who I work with and like the brands that I want to ride for. So like I like doing it this way. Like the past couple of years, I haven't really minded traveling on my own. Sometimes it's like would have been really nice to have a mechanic, but like I think it's a really nice way to do it for sure.
What are the main things you look for from brands? I guess the main one's obviously the bike, but also like clothing, components. Yeah,
like kind of who else they have on board. So like a lot of them have sponsors for everything. There's not much freedom to like keep any existing sponsors or go and get new sponsors of your choice. So I'd say that's one of the main thing. If there's like any gaps, to keep my own sponsors, but also like just the people and like how they speak to us has been really important for me. Like Canada have always been amazing, really lovely, and like it kept everything that they've offered and stuff, which like I don't know, isn't always the case in the bike industry. So kind of just like feeling it out, and nothing has been, I've not ever wanted to move from Cannondale. So like it's kind of been out of like interest, like speak to people. I'm not going to say, no, we can't have a conversation. But yeah, I've always been very happy where I am. So like I've never really been like pushing or like looking.
So when it comes to like these brands, do you like work with like an agent or a manager, or is it something that you've just learned to do yourself and do it all directly with them?
Yeah, no, I do it all myself. Like I think it feels a bit funny sometimes to have communication through someone else. So quite a bit of work now. And each year it like builds up more and more, the more I understand and like find like a brand that I want to work with. Like I'm not in a hurry to get a sponsor for everything. I don't know, I'd rather like find what I like before I like jump in with someone. So like, yeah. But the more it builds up, the more there is to do aside from racing, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's one thing I definitely learned a few years ago, where when I found myself in a position where I could approach sponsors and they weren't telling me to get lost anymore.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh man, this is great. Like just taking it on, like even if it's not for maybe like a huge financial amount or not necessarily a brand that you're like kind of like stoked on. And then it's like once you actually signed, you kind of get an idea of like just how much work's involved to honour everything that you're doing for that brand, especially when you're trying to race as well.
For sure. No, I try and keep it to like select brands that I really want to work with that can like, we can each offer something good. Mm-hmm. And other than that, don't just try not to just take everything that's exciting.
Yeah. I think that's definitely a lesson learned like in every aspect of my life, to like less is definitely more sometimes.
For sure, yeah. No, I end up having a lot of emails to do, a lot of emails. But
just like your followers getting absolutely sick of you just going endless, like blatant sponsor posts.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that as well. Like I want to try and keep like social media and stuff me. Yeah. And like keep it a little more subtle than like huge pushes for specific products.
So you're on Cannondale.
Yeah.
On Cannondale bikes for your bike. What other sponsors?
I have Rafa for clothing, and then Smith for eyewear and protection. And then I have Industry 9 wheels this year, One Up components, handlebars, stem, chain guides and tools. Racer gloves, they're actually a French brand, but I've been searching for the perfect gloves for a long time. I finally found them. And Camelback. I really hope I haven't forgotten anything.
SRAM?
SRAM. Oh, I thought we did.
Oh, maybe
SRAM.
you did say SRAM.
Yeah, SRAM and RockShox as well.
Yeah, you mentioned SRAM.
Yeah.
Ah, cool. That's like a fairly long list, but not like as long as some people's list could be for like, and they're all fairly practical. They're like all things that you actually need.
Yeah, and then I should say actually Dyed Bro as well, frame protection.
Oh yeah,
can't miss that one.
You'll get into trouble there.
Yeah, I won't be happy.
I'll like try and get that cut like into the front of it. So
yeah, just like blend it in, you know.
Like we got SRAM, Dyed Bro.
Yeah.
You just have to get you to say Dyed Bro like a few times.
Yeah.
Like just so we get the right one. Yeah. So is Dyed Bro your partner's obviously, I'm probably going to say his name, was it Iago or Iago?
Iago. Yeah.
And is he basically owns and runs that company, right?
Yeah, so he has 2 business partners, and then him and they have a few employees now as well. So I think it's grown a lot. It's doing really well.
Yeah, it's been cool to see just from the sidelines through Insta and stuff, just like where that brand's going and stuff. It's like definitely getting out there. It's been seen on some pretty big names. For
sure. Yeah, everyone seems really stoked on it. I think their like ability to just like print anything on a frame protector and fast, it's all like produced in Madrid, so like they have a really, really quick turnaround. Sick.
Cool. Yeah, I saw I think Martha Gill's got her own kind of.
Yeah, they have a go on.
Yeah,
I have it on my bike actually. It's really cool.
You've been taken in as an honorary member.
Well, my friends have go on and my boyfriend has Dyed Bro, so it was a really obvious choice to have on my bike. Yeah.
It's a good setup. Yeah. And I guess you've got like a pretty unique perspective. You've been a female racer in cross country. You've been a female racer in enduro. Where do you think we are in terms of getting to the right place in terms of opportunities, equal opportunities for females in riding, if you were to compare that to the men's field?
That's a big question. question. Hey,
That was a big rambling question.
That's all
I
right.
always get nervous when I start tackling things like this.
I can just spit something kind of vague out too. It's all right. I think it's improving.
Yep.
I think I've personally always had quite a good experience, and I'm not sure if I'm always like paid. I don't know if we're talking about pay or just general opportunities. Like,
we'll start with pay.
We'll start with pay. Okay, sweet. So I think I'm not sure if I'm paid like the equivalent of the men, but I'm happy with what I'm earning now. So like I can't slate it and say I've had like a bad experience or like because I've not, but I can see that there are a lot of women that like struggle to make it work, or like there's not a lot of opportunity, but I do see that improving. So like there are more women now supported and on EWS teams than there ever have been, like a lot more, and that's improved very quickly over the past couple of years. So I think that's really cool to see. Like it's going in the right direction for sure. I still think there's the women at the top of EWS at least are not paid exactly the same as the men, but it's going to be a process. It takes time. Mm-hmm. And like the women's racing is improving, which I think is not improving, like becoming more and more competitive. So like that's always going to fuel it as well. So yeah, I don't know if that really answered the question.
I'm always just interested. Like again, I don't know about it. It's something I'm always just interested to hear about. Do you think with cross country? I know cross country is just a different beast with the Olympics. There's so much. It's so big in Europe, especially. There's so many brands behind it. So I can just only assume that the support financially and non-financially for the men and the women is just higher than Enduro and probably even downhill. Do you think though, even if you took out the actual level of money and support that they're on, do you think there's more parity with, say, the top of the women's field to the top of the men's field in cross country compared to EWS and downhill?
I don't know if some of it comes down to like the media coverage, because we don't have live streaming in the EWS, and so I'd say that I don't know, because it's hard to know without knowing how much people are paid, isn't it? Like, because no one speaks about exactly how much they're paid. Like, it's all just kind of guesses. But like, I think the more that like individuals are shown of a race series, like the better it will get for sure. And again, like I didn't have much of a taste in cross country of how that sponsorship worked or what people were getting. Like I didn't really have sponsors when I raced cross country, so like it's really, really hard to know. It looks like the more top women in cross country are paid more similar to the men than enduro. But again, I don't know what the girls I'm racing against earn. So like, yeah. It's like
just need to have like a big database and be like, right, everyone, for the sake of like equality and transparency, like we're all just gonna like disclose how much we all get paid, and then like there'll be a little bit more accountability.
It would be outrageous. Imagine looking through
all
that.
The top guys like, no, we'll just leave it. Like we're just happy to not tell you.
Yeah, some people would be buzzing. I think it would be pretty shocking what a few people are paid. But again, it's really hard to tell. Like we speak about that professional rider term, and it's like, at what point do you become a professional rider? Some people are calling them professional riders, and they look like it, but maybe they're not. I don't know if they can like actually make a living out of it. It's like, it's really hard to know. It's
hard to have this discussion without sounding ungrateful, essentially, because you've got such an amazing opportunity. You're riding your bike. You might not be saving any money, but you're still traveling the world. So it's like, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that there's not an issue there.
Yeah.
And I think when I spoke to Tani about it, as well as Vero, they were in a kind of difficult situation, because whilst they have observed different inequalities within pays and opportunities, they're both very aware of how lucky they are.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say lucky because they've got themselves to where they are, but they're both happy and stoked with where they are. They're getting paid to ride their bike, probably getting paid pretty well, probably more than they ever maybe expected to get paid on their bike. But if someone else is still getting paid a lot more than them, it's still an inequality.
Oh, for
sure. It's just an inequality of pretty cool places, but it's like, it's a really hard one to kind of judge without coming across the total dick, basically.
Yeah, no, I find it the same, because like I have great brands behind me and I'm really happy with all the support they gave me. But I don't know if I'm paid the same or like get the same support as a male that's had a couple of elite podiums.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Or like, I've had some outrageous offers, like from teams where you've gone like, what planet are you on? Like, I can't run like a year's salary.
Like, outrageous as in good or bad?
Horrific.
Okay.
Like, cool. So it varies as well, I think. But yeah, I don't know if that's what they were offering, like every rider or like, yeah.
It's funny how like stoked you could be as it was like, say like, but like a Candy will put like a factory team together for next year and they say, right, okay, we're going to give you 150 grand a year, and you'd be like, oh, stoked.
Yeah.
And then imagine you've then found out like a guy who was also in the team who was getting nowhere near as good results as you, was like on 300. It's funny how like, again, you'd be stoked on what you were getting, but then if you were to hear that, it would be an inequality and it would be an issue.
Yeah, I don't know. As I said, like, I'm kind of happy with what I guess I'm 23, so like building it up is fine for me. Like, that's all right. Like, I know I probably need a bit more consistency to step it up.
It's a good way to be, I suppose. I suppose it changes like when you suddenly need, if you're like wanting to buy a house and stuff like that.
I mean, I'd love to buy a house, but I just know at the moment as like a bike racer in my position, it's like it's going to be a while.
Yeah, I had the joys of getting a mortgage last year, and it's amazing. Like, you're like, you do what? They're like, yeah, we've thought about it and we decided we're not going to rest. Like, I don't know how many mortgage places. I felt sorry for my mortgage advisor who had to like go to like so many different places and like.
Did you find one? Because I've had people tell me like, no chance, never doing what you do.
That's one thing I would definitely say is it could be an issue, but at the same time, don't just let everyone say that, oh, you won't get one, because that's what I did for like years. And I was just like, I just assumed, even though I had like a bit of money saved up for deposit, I just assumed because it was just like the thing that everyone said, oh no, you'll never get mortgage because like you're not like properly employed, and then when I actually looked into it, it wasn't as bad as I was expecting. It wasn't easy, but you maybe it's possible. You might just have to go through a few to get there.
Sweet, that's good to know.
Just get Cannondale to give you like a 3-year contract or something like that.
Yeah.
That you can, even if they want to rip it up, like after, just once you get that mortgage signed.
I hope they don't want to rip it up. That's the other thing I go with all my sponsors. I go out there with a long-term view. Like I pick people that I'm going to want to like have a career with. So, yeah.
I think that's the best way to be. Yeah. It's cool that you're riding for RAF about that, because that's like a brand that obviously a lot of people know about outside of mountain biking. How did that all come about?
So I actually, at the start of 2020, I did a shoot with Cannondale for a cross-country bike, and Rafa sent some shoes for me to wear. We were shooting on like the Scalpel in Torrid in February, so it was kind of like the weather is now, like cold, snowing, not great. Interesting shoot, but I heard rumours then of Rafa starting to do mountain bike kit. And as soon as I heard it, I was like, oh my goodness, like I need to wear that. So got in touch with the lady that sent the shoes, and she was like, yeah, no, like we'll keep in touch. And then she got in touch real soon after that, being like, yeah, no, we want to get you on board. Cool. So through 2020, I started like testing some of the kit for them, which was a sick process. And just racing in kind of fairly blank kit. They had like a gravel long sleeve Tech T that I raced in. But it was a crazy process to be involved with, and their like attention to like detail and want for feedback. Like they were so interested in everything you had to say. Like I'd get a prototype, ride in it for a while, test it, like give a few points of feedback, and then get an updated prototype with those things change. And I was like, oh my goodness, like they're really like listening, which was that
sounds like a pretty perfect storm for like someone like yourself, because it's a brand that probably has a lot of expertise that it can then like spill into its mountain bike side, but then it'll also have the resources and the contacts and the factories to actually do a good job of developing it as well. For
sure. Yeah, no, like they want to make the best, most technical kit for mountain biking, and I think they're doing a great job. I couldn't ride anything else now.
I do like the sort of, there's so much shit looking mountain bike kit out there.
Yeah.
I think like the RAF have got a pretty good opportunity to kind of come in and just like make like nice, like not too, well, you can go colourful, but you can also just have like non-colourful options as well.
Yeah, slightly more minimal, like minimal branding, like smart looking. I'm a huge fan. So I was a Rafa fan before, so it's like as soon as like I already bought Rafa road kit, so as soon as like that opportunity jumped up, I was like, I'm in. Yes, please.
That's ideal. So do you say they do shoes as well?
They do like gravel and road shoes.
Okay, cool. But so are they going to do? You probably can't say, but like a mountain bike shoe at all? Or?
At the moment, I'm wearing Crank Brothers shoes.
Okay, cool.
Shoes and pedals.
Cool. So in terms of where we're at, we're in March 2022. What are your sort of overall thoughts for the season, aims and stuff like that? You got anything specific in mind, or is it a case of just like getting out there and seeing where you land?
I guess it's hard to say out loud before the first race, isn't it? When you don't know where you are. But like, I'm really happy with like the work that I've put in this year, and I'm feeling like really, really good on the bike. We've done quite a lot of setup with Cannondale at the team camp a couple of weeks ago. So like, I feel in a good place to start racing. I don't know. My goal last year was top 5 consistently through the EWS, and that didn't always go quite to plan. So like, I was happy with some races last year, but like not necessarily happy with my riding at all of them. So I guess keep that goal, but I want to be on the podium. Like I want to be winning, but we'll keep like I try and build it up and keep like slightly more achievable goals each year. So like I don't know, maybe it will happen, but we'll aim for the podium for sure. Cool. That's a vague, slightly all over the place. Or I'm just gonna ride my bike and see.
Do you find being from the Highlands? I'm sure people around the world have the same challenge. Do you find it quite difficult to get an idea of where you are in relation to the rest of the field until you come to that first round, and you can suddenly like you could either think you're fast and you're way off the pace, but I'm sure at the same time the flip side can happen as well, where you're thinking you're slow and you suddenly find yourself on the pace.
Yeah. You mean like in terms of like the riding we have here, or the access to races, or
in terms of being able to race week in week, being able to ride week in week out with other people that you actually be competing against?
I don't know. Not necessarily. Like I have like Bex and Chloe live down in the Tweed Valley, so I'm going to ride with them this weekend. So like I have other people like kind of the similar level that I can ride with, but I think as long as I'm putting in the work, I don't feel too nervous. And like our descents are obviously a bit shorter here, but like and the climbs, but I've spoken to some people and I don't necessarily think it's like a disadvantage. Like it's just different style of riding. So yeah, not necessarily. I guess like I have the resources to fly somewhere and ride with people, or drive somewhere and ride with people if like I feel like I need to go somewhere different or ride with a different bunch of people. But yeah,
it's funny you say that about the amount of descent, and it's something I've asked other people on the podcast. Like it's amazing how successful UK riders have managed to be in downhill, enduro. Obviously, cross country doesn't have the same issue of needing like extended descents. Do you almost think like having the shorter descents is part of the reason that people have got like so good at riding them? Because you maybe like rather than like riding a 4-minute continuous trail, you'll actually end up to like session a corner and you figure out exactly how to corner, or you session a piece like that. Do you think there's something there?
I think exactly that. Like you might ride the same trail a few times in a ride, or like know the trail really, really well, rather than doing like an hour's loop and riding one trail. Like you could do an hour's loop and ride the same trail 4 times or 3 times, and like you hit it faster and faster, and like I think it makes you more confident on a track. So like maybe for enduro, maybe it doesn't make you great reading trails because you're not always riding new stuff, but it makes you confident in your bike riding ability, and I think pushes your skills quite a bit. So yeah, I've spoken about it with some people, and that's the only reason I can think that like all the riders that are doing well from the UK like can make it work on such short descents for training, is that it just develops you in a slightly different way. Relative
to like some of the guys down in like Surrey and stuff like that, I don't know what the longest descent up here is, like probably like 2 minutes or something like that. They're probably like in the sort of like 45-second territory. There's still so many good riders, like literally some of the best guys in the world have come from that area. And I was surprised even when I was in France this summer, and I just assumed when you see this like French domination of downhill and stuff like that, I just assumed that all these guys have grown up in like ski resorts. And
Yeah.
I think some of them have, but so many of them are from like Nice, Monaco kind of area,
For sure.
which has riding, obviously not wet like here, but more comparable in terms of like how much descent there is. And that's where all the best guys are from.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it must make you a good bike rider, repeating trails and sections, for sure. I think the thing I struggle with here is the length of climbs. So for Enduro, when you want to do like a 3-hour ride, 4-hour ride, it's difficult having to repeat like a 20-minute climb enough times. But yeah. I don't complain too much. I like it here.
Nah, it's a good setup. Like I say, I'm from here originally, but moved back here and I've almost been here for a year. It's pretty scary. Definitely been enjoying like how much riding there is around here. I have to say I've been doing it mostly on the e-bike. Have you got a Cannondale e-bike?
Right now I don't know.
Really?
I enjoy
Keeping away from
riding
it.
my race bike.
Yeah.
And I don't know, as soon as I ride an e-bike I feel like that's all I'd use. But they're good training tools as well. So yeah, hopefully at some point.
It's definitely improved my riding. As a trial rider, which is what I kind of do day in, day out, my mountain biking's always kind of been secondary. And it took kind of getting the e-bike to really sort of give me a kick up the ass to like, and
More
again,
trail
it's
riding.
kind of like similar to what you're talking about, where you're riding the same trail like over and over again, and it was only until then I actually really kind of had enough time of like repeating a trail to, this is how you corner, this is how you do this, and how you do that. It's like
For sure.
definitely, but I mean, I'm just trying to pretend I'm not lazy. I'm just lazy.
No, I enjoy riding the bike that I race on mostly. So like that's what I ride the majority of the time, and especially I got the new Jekyll last year, so it was useful to ride that a lot to get like the setup dialed in. So I guess that's why I'm not an e-biker.
What's your fleet of Cannondale bikes looking like then? So you obviously got your race bike.
Yeah, which is what I ride the majority of the time. I have the Dave, the jump
Oh, you
bike.
did? That's cool.
Yeah, I got that I built that up this time last year, actually.
That's cool.
I'm having such a good time, like getting comfortable on some very, very small dirt jumps.
Yeah, they're like racer killers dirt jumps. Like.
I just in the back of my mind, I have in the whole time that like I don't want to injure myself for the race season on a dirt jump, but I don't know. So I'm quite calculated with what I do, but it's good fun. And then I have a Habit, the short travel bike. Like 130, 140 mil, which is really good fun. I enjoy playing that. I race a bit of dual slalom on that Crankworks as well. And then I have road bike, gravel bike, like everything I need to train basically.
Yeah.
It's good.
I guess that's one of the benefits of riding for a company like Cannondale that has like such a big range of bikes.
Yeah.
You're not just restricted to like your race bike or your maybe race bike plus another. You get a nice selection.
I've got everything I need.
That's cool. Yeah, I saw that Cannondale Dave in Monster Bike yesterday.
It's sick.
Looks cool.
Really good, yeah.
I got a dirt jump bike from Marin a few months ago. I've not actually ridden it too much, but I need to get down the pump track. But again, just like what you were saying, it's so hard to get that balance of wanting to try some new things and diversify your skill set a little bit, but not injure yourself for what you're actually supposed to be doing or what you're getting paid for.
For sure. Like I spent some time at La Poma in Barcelona early in the year, and like I'm playing. They have like a really good set of like 3 small jump lines, and that's like a good progression between them. But like once I'm looking at like the bigger lines, and I'm like I know I can do that. Like I know I could do that, but like I just can't quite bring myself. So like I stick to the nice small flowy
I feel
line.
the same, to be honest.
Yeah.
I actually tried the worst crash I've had probably for the last maybe 6 months was, the Forgotten Road.
Yes.
I tried to hit those. Well, I was hitting those jumps like the small line on the left on my trials bike.
Yeah.
And the bit that wasn't even a double, I like was going a bit slow, and I just tried to like pump it a bit and just like nose dives and just like like full on like head. I think I was okay. The only reason I like kind of my collarbone survived it is because I kind of like my head and my shoulder like hit at the same time.
Yeah.
Which wasn't ideal, but it kind of was like a bit of a half and half. So managed to escape it. But I would love to be able to ride dirt jumps, but I've almost just accepted that it's not going to happen. I saw Greg and Kenta and stuff ride those jumps the other day, and I was like, it looks so good and so fun. But
yeah, once someone has it good, it looks like so floaty and cruisy. I'm like, they make it look so easy. The same watching Iago, I'm like, is that really hard? Like, I've struggled with pump tracks a bit. Like, I have a mental block with the concrete.
yeah,
like or tarmac, I just
I just
something in
different
my
to what
head
you're
is
used
like,
to.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Like to me, dirt looks like soft and like you slide a bit.
Even though it isn't.
Yeah. Ground looks nicer, but
That's an interesting thing you're saying about riding with guys and stuff like that at dirt jumps or whatever. Do you think, and this is something that I've found really interesting from Tani and Vero, do you think from like, aside from like the obvious like physical differences between men and women on average, do you think there's a kind of mental, I don't want to say reckless, don't want to say that men are too reckless, but do you think there's like some sort of difference there in terms of willing to put yourself in danger, whereas a female maybe like has to follow a bit more of a process?
it's interesting actually. And I don't want to be too like general because I know like men and women are like either way.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
Most of the women I ride with are like pretty calculated, like top riders in the world. I think that's how I'd say, rather than like, they're calculated. So like, they want to know that they'd be able to do something before they do it.
Yeah.
And I guess I don't really know so much about how men think, but maybe. I think it's coming though. Like they maybe just need to go through like different processes to ride the same thing.
Yeah, it was like say Tani and Vera both said it, where I think they were like really, really grateful that they're able to ride with their brothers and their boyfriends, Kate and Chaos. It really helps them push them on, but at the same time, they really enjoy riding with each other because they both know that they have to follow a different process to learn something. So maybe Kate and Chaos, which maybe aren't the best examples because they're like absolute senders and are ridiculously talented on bikes, but they're very much to like Tani, like, oh, like just do it, like do a backflip straight onto the resi, and she's like, that's because that's how they learned it, and they're like, but then her and Vero will be like, no, we'll get there, but we want to do it in like a different way, like maybe we'll do it going to the foam pit or something like that, or work our way up to that. And it's just interesting because they felt that they both were similar in that respect, and maybe it's just coincidence that they're females and they're males, or maybe there's something there, I don't know.
I don't know.
Again, you gotta be careful these days.
I know, it's hard to speak about, isn't it? I think there's something in it, and like personally as a female, I find it far more relatable when a woman sends a jump than like say when Iago sends a jump. Like if I watch a woman do it and we can chat about it and chat about how they did it, I'm probably more likely to do it than to just watch Iago. And I don't know if that's like the difference in like level and speed between me and him, or whether like it is more the process. Yeah,
it's definitely an interesting one. It's a bit of can be controversial to talk about things like that, especially like as a white male. It's always really hard for me to tackle any of these debates, but so that's why I'm always just like get super nervous whenever I break up. So all my questions when I relate to stuff like that is probably really long-winded and jumbled up.
That's all right.
But I just try to get my head around it. It's just an interesting one.
Yeah, no, I've been like, we thought there was going to be a huge benefit, like me following Iago, and there's maybe because of the differences in level as well. It's like not always helped because I'll watch him doing something and that's so unrelatable to me, or like I'll try and follow him, and like I actually ride better when he follows me than when I follow him. So like rather than like trying to keep up, like me actually reading the trail and trying to ride well helps me more than like trying to like chase or follow someone.
I suppose it's just a fine balance, because I guess with your like different physically, you're gonna, what's the fastest way down the trail for him won't necessarily be the fastest way down the trail for you.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm sure, but at the same time, I'm sure there's loads of things that you could take from an experienced rider like him's line choice.
Yeah.
But maybe only to a level, and maybe like, you know what, that like hop where you like muscle it round like a wall ride or something, that is fast for you, but that's not going to work for me, kind of thing. It's just kind of like try to pick that sort of balance of taking little bits from people and taking little bits from other people and trying to put it together.
Yeah, no, definitely.
A minefield.
It's interesting.
Nah, it's really interesting. I was like quite interested to hear how they get faster. Maybe just because I want to get faster myself. I have it where like I could go riding with like Greg Williamson or something.
Yeah.
And he's just so much faster than me. So I'm like, I'm not going to get anything out of it because I can't even see his lines because he's like so far ahead of me.
Yeah, for sure. No, I have it the same. If I were to like ride even a lap with like Greg or Kenta, who actually coaches me, I can hardly keep up the hill. Like I'm panting and I can't speak to them up the hill. And then as soon as we get to a trail, they're gone. And I'm like, we're not actually really riding together here.
Yeah, you may as well be by yourself. Nah, I definitely know that feeling. Nice one. Well, I will let you go. It's a nice day. It was snowing earlier. Are you going riding today at all? Or are you?
No, I've actually got a rest day today, which is quite nice. Had a very, very busy couple of weeks and have some emails and stuff to catch up on. So, nice. Gonna have a chill one inside while it's snowing. And I think it was 4 degrees while I was driving here.
It's pretty gnarly. I was literally like paddleboarding in the sea the other day, and now it's like I woke up today and it was snowing. It's like classic Highland weather.
For sure. Keeps it interesting.
Yeah. But anyway, thanks so much for coming on. All the best for the rest of the season.
Thank you.
Hopefully be at Tweed Love, which is what, June, is it?
Yeah, almost exactly 2 months.
Oh, really?
Till race season, still.
Cool.
Some time to put some work in, but yeah.
Just for people listening, like, where's best to keep up with you? Like, what's your Insta and stuff like that?
Instagram, Ella_Conolly.
Okay.
Then Facebook, I think it's just Ella Conolly.
Okay, cool.
I think so, yeah. Those
Any
are my
YouTube
two main
channels or anything? You stay away from that? Don't get involved?
No, I might get involved this year. I've been, thinking about it, but I think it'd be interesting to give a bit more of behind the scenes of an enduro race if I could fit it in the weekend. So I don't know, stay tuned, maybe it'll pop up soon.
I'll hold you to it. If it does drop before this podcast drops, I'll hit it and I'll put it in the show notes and people can check it out.
Sick.
Some pressure for you.
Thanks for having me.
No worries, cheers.